I would like to share a passage from Jeremiah chapter 18. So God, He speaks to a prophet, Jeremiah, and He says in verse 2, "Go down to the potter's house, and there I will give you my message." So I went down to the potter's house and I saw him working. My question to you is, so God, He decided to bring a message to His people. And He told Jeremiah, "Hey Jeremiah, I have a message. Please go to this place at a different location, and then I will tell you my message." My question is very simple. God, why couldn't you tell him your message right away? If we can have on the screen Jeremiah chapter 18 verse 2. So He said, "Go to the potter's house and I will deliver my message." Obviously, I think God could have told him right away. So Jeremiah, he thinks, well, okay, Lord, if that's what you want me to do, I'm gonna go. And then when he comes, he watches the potter working on his wheel. And not everything worked out perfectly. And then the potter, he kind of has to redesign, redo, restart all over again. And then God says that clay symbolizes my people, and me, God, I am the potter. So what was the biggest revelation that Jeremiah was supposed to say to his people? What was he supposed to see? What quality the clay was? Was it a good quality? This shop, all the equipment that the potters used, what was he supposed to see? And here is the revelation. The biggest revelation God was trying to reveal to His people is that, Jeremiah, look at the process that every single person is going through. You, God says, you are the clay in my hands. And sometimes we don't like the process. We like the results. We want the results very fast. But it is impossible to get the results without the process. Even though we don't like the process, sometimes it seems so long and so painful. And sometimes when this beautiful piece that God was trying to create, when it collapses, when it breaks into little pieces, it becomes dust. Maybe your dreams, your desires, maybe whatever you're going through right now, it seems like everything just got destroyed. God, He takes all these little pieces. He puts them back together. He puts it back on the wheel. And He continues to work. So if you are a believer, if you are still walking on this earth, never forget that you are in the process. But what matters is whose hands are over this process. God, He said, you are in my hands. We might not understand everything we're going through, but remember, you are in the process. Let me ask you the question, what was Christ's last wish before He was arrested? Sometimes when people get killed, Sometimes they're given this privilege. What's your last wish? Do you remember what Jesus' last wish was? Luke 22:15, it says, Jesus, he said, with fervent desire, I have desired to eat this Passover with you before I suffer. NIV translation says, I have eagerly desired to eat this Passover with you before I suffer. Question, why this was his last desire? Why he eagerly desired? Obviously, I think it was not just about physical nutrition. I think the meaning behind this gathering was much deeper. I like Luke because he's a very detailed guy. And I consider myself a detailed guy as well. So the Gospel of Luke is the only Gospel that gives us this detail about the Last Supper. All other Gospels, or epistles, they just give us, the process, what goes after what and what it symbolizes. But Luke is the only one who reveals to us the inner emotions of Jesus Christ. The text says that he desired. It was like his big, eagerly, he really wanted to have this supper with his disciples. Did you know that Passover, Jewish people, they had to share this meal during the time when they were running away from Egypt. They used to be slaves. And that was something that God told them to do. And did you know that when they were eating this Passover meal, they had to eat standing? Did you know that? They were not allowed to sit down. They had to eat and stand. It's interesting when you read the Gospels, Jesus was not standing. Any idea why? So you see, once again, this detailed guy, he gives us little details, hints, something is coming, something is different about this Passover. In ancient times, the first Passover meal was eaten standing up with a staff in hand. This is because in ancient times, people were reclined at a meal, only those who were considered free, while slaves and servants stood. Today, Passover is celebrated with a reclining posture at the table as a symbol of freedom. So the time came when Jesus, he invited his disciples for this Passover. I would like you guys to remember that it was exclusive meal. Only Jesus had encountered, he was in relationship with many people, but he invited only 12 to this last dinner. Only his disciples, only those who were close to him. While he's explaining and teaches them about every stage of the Passover and the meaning of the Last Supper, this time the Passover had reached its end and found its full meaning. The old covenant, which was changed the slaves of Egypt into God's servants, this time it gives place to the new covenant, which changes his servants into his sons. Romans 8, it says, now if we are children, then we are heirs, heirs of God and co-heirs with Christ. So many things are different. This last Passover that Jesus had such a great desire to share with his disciples, it was the very last Passover according to the Old Testament. And during that Passover, disciples, they see that the way Jesus does things, some things are different. Like I said, first of all, He's not standing anymore. Reclining position, new covenant. You're free now. Supper implies closeness. According to Jesus, because He invited only His disciples, only those who were very close to Him. When today we will share this supper, do you feel close to Jesus? Right? It's not just about eating a piece of bread, it's about being close. Supper or dinner inclines fellowship. Jesus, He was always looking to have a relationship with every person. Relationship or fellowship. And this idea is represented again in Revelation chapter 3, the last book of the Bible, where He says, I stand at the door and I knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in and I will supper. I will dine. I will have a dinner with Him. Have you ever tried to eat a dinner in 3 minutes? In 5 minutes? Do you think it's technically possible? I think so. Your eyes might become very big. You might start coughing. You might not like this digesting process. Potentially you will survive, but you will not take pleasure. Usually you don't eat dinner in 5 minutes, correct? Even though technically you could. What it tells me is that dinner, it's usually not only about physical nutrition. It's also about fellowship. That's exactly what Jesus is hinting to when He says, I stand, I knock. If you open, I will come in. I don't need your rituals. Yes, sometimes I'm sure God, He is merciful, and sometimes when we have this 3-minute prayer, what we call fellowship, we're kinda did our duty, check mark. Lord, bless my day, solve my problems. Fellowship, it's usually more than a 5-minute supper. So your personal relationship, your devotions, the time you spend with God, that's what He's looking for. And when He said, I eagerly desire to have this supper with you, my question to you, just be honest, pause, don't answer right away. Were you really excited to come and have this supper with Him today? Don't answer fast. Just be honest. Were you really excited? Well, if you want us to do it, we're going to do it, okay? If you want me to eat this cracker, okay, I'm going to swallow the cracker. Jesus, He said, I really desired to have this supper with you, who are my disciples. Only with my disciples. He invited to the table disciples. True disciples. Yes, it's good and it's right, to obey the commandments, but God is after relationship. Not just rituals, but relationship. And what I love about the supper, after the supper, we read in the Gospels that they went on the mountain and Jesus was singing a hymn. Let me give you a homework. Try to research and find out what kind of hymn Jesus was singing right after the Last Supper as they went on the mountain. Interesting, right? I will give you a hint. You will find the answer in Psalms. What were they singing as they went to the mountain? And see the impact after the supper. They started singing in their spirit. So that's what we are going to do right now.